Part 58, he convinced his bodyguard for his lover to guard in the future. After getting penicillin, Bai Xuelan carried the small box and drove back to the hospital. After entering the ward, he shoved the small box into his arms to the adjutant's son who was guarding, and said, "You take good care of this thing, and you can also deal with that. The German doctor will take care of you. If you still have a fever, you can still use it, you don't have to worry about the medicine, it is always important to keep the patient safe." Adjutant's son knew that since Bai Xuelan came back, he would be superfluous here, so he responded with a smile, holding the small box, and went out wisely. Bai Xuelan turned his head and smiled softly at Xuan Huaifeng on the hospital bed. Xuan Huaifeng asked, "What did you bring back excitedly? It's so mysterious." Bai Xuelan said, "Isn't it penicillin? The original one was used up, I'm afraid it won't be enough. So I went to the headquarters to ask for some more." Xuan Huaifeng was startled. He didn't know that Bai Xuelan was going out for this. So, he disapproved and said, "I know. This medicine is controlled. I only use it when I have a fever these days. I'm young and have good healing power. At this time, there is no danger of infection. In my opinion, if you return these to the headquarters, maybe it can save other people's lives." Bai Xuelan said, "I'm good, it's easy to ask for it, so how can I return it?" Xuan Huaifeng wanted to persuade him, but Bai Xuelan stopped him and said, "Okay, don't worry about it. If I bring it, it may not be for you. Can't I help myself? Are you ready? Someone else offered me gold bars as a reward." Xuan Huaifeng frowned and said, "People who are chiefs always keep their mouths shut. This is in a hospital ward. And they deliberately say unlucky things." Bai Xuelan gave him a meaningful smile, and asked, "Are you worried about me? I really like the way you talk like an old mother. How can someone who doesn't get into your precious eyes, how can you be so earnest? Teaching? It can be seen that now you have me in your eyes." Bending down, he brought his lips to Xuan Huaifeng's lips and kissed him lovingly. Because Xuan Huaifeng is used to being lawless with him these days, and he doesn't resist much. He bears his kiss helplessly and sweetly. The two of them rubbed their ears, and Bai Xuelan sat on the edge of the bed, holding his slender, white hands while playing, and asked, "I went out for a while, were you bored?" Xuan Huaifeng said, "A little bored, I'm bored. I can only think of something else." Bai Xuelan asked, "What are you thinking about?" Xuan Huaifeng felt amused, "You are too lenient. Now I even have to worry about whatever is in my mind." Bai Xuelan said calmly, "I always care. You don't need to protest, let's be honest, what are you thinking about?" Xuan Huaifeng said, "I'm thinking about it. I talked to you about the establishment of a drug rehabilitation center." Bai Xuelan said with pity, "You idiot, these official matters will be discussed after your injury is healed. So why are you lying in bed worrying now? It's not a matter of 1 day or 2 days." Xuan Huaifeng said, "It's just because the scourge of drugs is not 1 day or 2 days. It's because the scourge is hard to heal, so we should hurry up and do it. Besides, I'm lying down and have nothing to do anyway. Think about it, and be calm in my heart. I want you to lie on the bed like me all day, and you can't even think about business, what do you think?" Bai Xuelan said, "Well, I won't argue with you. Tell me what you think. Come out. Let's take a look at the details." As soon as he started talking about the business, Xuan Huaifeng regained his energy, his eyes lit up, and said, "First of all, although drug use should be condemned, the Chinese people who use drugs are not all hopeless. If you go astray, you will lose your family because of this, and you will suffer from the evil of drugs. Naturally, you want to struggle to get out of it, but you just suffer from the lack of a good way to get rid of drugs. For such people, the state cannot sit idly by and let them fend for themselves." Bai Xuelan coldly said, 9 out of 10 drug addicts are self-inflicted, at least they are not strong in their resolve. Now, the country can't even take care of people who live their lives honestly. How can they have the energy to manage this kind of ignorance? Life and death? Xuan Huaifeng said, "You are so prejudiced. What else can I say?" Bai Xuelan hurriedly smiled and said, "I haven't finished speaking yet. Are you making an argument? Even though I say so, I don't object to the suggestion of building a drug rehabilitation center. First, let the drug dealers know that there are people who are drug addicts in the world who get rid of them. Second, since the drug rehab center has been set up in an upright manner, the world will naturally know that drug use has harmful consequences, otherwise why should we quit? It's scary, but it's also good to be alert." He said this. And Xuan Huaifeng's starting point was different, but since he agreed to open a drug rehabilitation center, it was the same goal. Knowing that he looks cynical on the surface, Xuan Huaifeng is very assertive when it comes to the truth, and it is difficult for him to change his extreme views for a while, so he continues, "It's one thing to say, but really there are still a few difficulties to get through." He paused. In an orderly manner, Xuan Huaifeng said, "First, this drug rehabilitation center should not be managed by the General Administration of Customs, but by the police department. The bureaucrats of the police department want them to take the initiative to run this kind of thing that benefits the country and the people. I'm afraid it's an extravagant hope for something that won't make a profit. Second, even if the above agrees to let the General Administration of Customs handle this matter, where should it be built? Naturally, a large amount of money is required to build a house. Doctors and nurses with this knowledge, wait, which one doesn't cost money? These expenses finally come down a lot. And they have to be provided on time every month. Where do they come from? Third, drug rehabilitation should also be scientific, like those outsiders. Throwing a bundle of people in the house with a rope is absolutely not acceptable. We also need to get some effective Western medicine to help increase the chance of success," he said, raising his right hand and pulling its fingers, pondering one by one. Bai Xuelan only felt that this appearance was not only handsome and extraordinary, but also showed a lively and cuteness like the buds of March grass. He couldn't help but grab his hand and kiss him on the snow-white fingers, very itchy. Huaifeng pulled his hands out. Both funny and angry. "I'm talking about business, you suddenly went crazy again." Bai Xuelan roguely said, "You said what you said, I kissed you, what does it have to do with it? But of those 3 points just now, 2 points are easy to solve." "Oh, at the police department, don't worry, Bai Xuelan, do these good things for them. I don't want them to send gifts to express my condolences. They dare to come and whisper? I said that we are in charge, and this is a national official business. Naturally, you can ask for help from the government and foreign affairs, and ask international friends to help and support. Otherwise, you and I have both come back from studying abroad. There are always some foreign students and foreign friends who can always find some ways." Bai Xuelan seemed to say it casually, but in fact it was thoughtful. "The rest of the problem is the trouble of money," Xuan Huaifeng said. "This is a huge long-term expenditure. You can take a look at it. What does the Prime Minister say?" Bai Xuelan smiled bitterly. "Nowadays officials, if they want to eat, drink and play tricks and prostitutes, they will never be short of money. Only the government's treasury is a terrible empty account. The salaries of civil servants and the public expenses of various general administrations are used for most of the rest, and the rest is spent on diplomatic expenses, buying weapons, and paying army salaries." As soon as it came out, the Prime Minister was very angry. At this time, when I reached out to the Prime Minister, wouldn't I be scolding him? I must be stunned. Xuan Huaifeng sighed. "What can I do? In today's world, it is impossible to do anything without money. We also wrote a report in the newspaper to raise funds for social charity. Bai Xuelan said, "This method is done in the name of the General Administration of Customs, and it will fail completely. Now the newspaper reporters are working against us." The General Administration of Customs scolds him as a miser who specializes in making money. How can public opinion take care of us? Xuan Huaifeng raised his thick eyelashes and gave him a deep look. Bai Xuelan wondered if he had mistaken the meaning of his glance, and said, "Do you want me to donate personally? In fact, I have saved a lot of money for a while, and donating it is nothing. However, this is not a long-term solution. The first month is over, what about the second and third months? If the drug rehab center is successful, the number of people who come to rehab will also increase. And it will be impossible to deal with it. Don't frown, I think my heart aches. Don't worry, just for you, I will come up with a solution." When he said this without hesitation, Xuan Huaifeng was moved by a wave in his heart and whispered, "Don't put all the responsibility on yourself. It's better for us to work together to solve the big things." Taking action, he grabbed Bai Xuelan's hand and tightened it. Bai Xuelan's heart was also rippling. And he held his hand with his backhand. He wanted to say something excitedly. His lips moved, and suddenly his face changed again, and he frowned and lowered his head. Xuan Huaifeng asked in shock, "What's wrong with you? Are you feeling unwell?" Bai Xuelan waved to him, panting slightly, and after a while, he raised his head and asked with a wry smile, "When will your wound heal?" "Thanks for being able to endure it." Xuan Huaifeng was startled, and when he understood, his cheeks suddenly flushed red. He involuntarily pulled his hand out. Bai Xuelan didn't stop him. So he retracted his hand and only looked at him with aggrieved eyes. He pretended to be pitiful like this. Xuan Huaifeng couldn't teach him anything, his face was hot. His black eyelashes were drooping down, and he said, "Sitting on someone else's bed, you can have such a strong desire." Bai Xuelan didn't know whether to laugh or cry, so he asked him, "The hospital bed is also a bed. I'm young and strong, with strong vigor and strong desire. What's wrong with my desire?" Xuan Huaifeng said, "Then how do you solve it?" Bai Xuelan said, "It's weird. You are such a knowledgeable person, don't you know how to solve it? In fact, what you know in your heart is whether you are willing or not. If you are willing, I will naturally be happy." Totally understand what he means. It's just that, if you want to say he doesn't want to, you know that he endured it very hard. Besides, these days, he has been serving as an imitation to lie prostrate, and he refused, which is too ruthless. But to say the word will is too embarrassing. After being stunned for a long time, unable to make a choice, he simply closed his eyes and said bluntly, "This is not my problem, it has nothing to do with me." In short, you can solve it how you think it can be solved. Bai Xuelan deliberately asked, "If I use it, how do you solve it?" After asking twice, Xuan Huaifeng still had his eyelids drooping and said inaudibly, "I said it all, it has nothing to do with me." Bai Xuelan was stunned and said in shock, "What do you mean? Do you really agree?" Although Xuan Huaifeng decided to let him let it go, verbally, there was always an indescribable shyness. His pale lips were tightly closed. No matter how Bai Xuelan asked, he would not agree to give a positive answer. Bai Xuelan couldn't help but jump up from the bedside and shouted, very good, you wait for me. I will be here in a while." He went to the bathroom. Xuan Huaifeng secretly opened his eyes a little, and just saw him closing the bathroom door. It seemed that he was in a hurry to change into loose clothes to prepare for cleaning. After waiting for a while, the door opened. And Bai Xuelan really changed into a loose long nightgown and came out, as if he was too happy. His handsome face glowed slightly, he went to the bed, lifted the quilt and drilled in. Xuan Huaifeng had been sleeping with him in his arms these days, so he naturally turned to his side and let him in. Bai Xuelan hugged him comfortably, and the two lay on the bed together. Xuan Huaifeng waited and waited, seeing that he was actually very honest, with no other action, secretly felt strange but was too embarrassed to ask. After waiting for a while, he was still very honest, couldn't help being curious, turned his head in his chest, and glanced at him. Bai Xuelan had been waiting for his move, his eyes met him, raised his lips and asked, "You think I want to be kept back, don't you?" Xuan Huaifeng asked him with his eyes, "Do you really plan to be kept back?" Bai Xuelan sneered, "What kind of shit keep back is? A whole idiot who doesn't eat meat." Bai Xuelan are naturally very different from him. He smiled inexplicably. Xuan Huaifeng was teased by him and asked, "What's the difference?" Bai Xuelan said, "This difference can be seen in terms of spiritual and physical sublimation." Xuan Huaifeng was even more curious. This kind of thing can also be saying so much truth? Don't be nonsense again. Bai Xuelan said, "You don't have to laugh, just wait for me to say it, and you will know that it is reasonable." Xuan Huaifeng said, "That's good. You tell me, let me listen." Bai Xuelan coughed lightly. "First of all, spiritually, the keep back is only facing a strange woman, there is no love in it. And I am facing you. The most loved in my life. Lover, there is a lot of love in it. If I want you today, even if you don't say it, you will definitely call me a carnal beast. For this sacred love, of course. I have to endure the torment of desire occasionally. Show my sincerity." Xuan Huaifeng's face flushed. Human change is not without fear. Unexpectedly, now these sweet and nauseous words. I seem to be able to accept them all. He asked, "If that's the case, doesn't it go against the desires of the flesh? How can the flesh be sublimated? It's going to be a long wait again." Bai Xuelan smiled evilly. "So, if you set a long line to catch big fish, you might as well wait a few more days and eat a hearty meal later." And what? And I'm like this. Showing your loyalty, when you want to eat meat in the future, you will naturally cooperate again and again, right? Xuan Huaifeng smiled without saying a word, which was a tacit consent. He knew in his heart that although Bai Xuelan said a bunch of crooked ideas, he was caring about his body and refused to act rashly. He felt that he was gentle and considerate. And he was incomparable to others. He stretched out his hand and let Bai Xuelan hold it, moved his body slightly, and leaned in Bai Xuelan's arms. Half of his face was also pressed against Bai Xuelan's undulating chest. Listening to the strong and rhythmic heartbeat, he slept peacefully and happily. The next day, although the wind was turbulent outside, thanks to Bai Xuelan's only hand covering the sky, he deployed defenses inside and outside the German hospital, blocking if he could, and encasing a ward in his sleeve like a delicate little paradise. Xuan Huaifeng is under his care. He is young. Day by day, his injuries are getting better. He doesn't have to suffer from the pain of changing medicines every day, and he can get out of bed and move around. Although he was indifferent, he couldn't help it after being restrained for so long. After walking 2 or 3 times in the ward leaning against the wall, he discussed with Bai Xuelan, "Since it's healed, don't occupy other people's wards. I really want to go home." Bai Xuelan looked at him with an unfathomable smile. Xuan Huaifeng asked, "What did I say to make you smile so strangely?" Bai Xuelan said, "This is a smile of surprise and admiration. There are 2 things in what you said just now. It's really good." After getting along with him for a long time, Xuan Huaifeng found that Bai Xuelan was very proficient at picking other people's words. Every time he picked it out, after his interpretation, it became more ambiguous and unspeakable. But it was impossible to refute it. Hearing what he said, he subconsciously felt a slight wave in his heart, and asked with a smile, "Oh, which two places are the best?" Bai Xuelan said eloquently. "The first one is that I really want to go home and make people feel good." As soon as I heard it, there was a sense of coquettishness. And it was a term used by close people. Xuan Huaifeng was ashamed, and even said, "Nonsense, nonsense. There is absolutely no meaning to coquettish. I am not a person who studies Chinese. And I know from ancient times to the present, this good word has never been explained as a spoiled child." He firmly refused to admit it. Bai Xuelan smiled and said, "Okay. Put the first one aside for now. You must not refute the second one." Xuan Huaifeng said, "What is the second one?" Bai Xuelan said, "Isn't it better to use the second home? You used to call White Mansion and the Chief's Mansion so unfamiliarly, but now you have made great progress and have officially recognized our home verbally." "Yes, naturally. If you have a lover in your heart, you will have a home." Xuan Huaifeng thought about it carefully, and sure enough he was right. When I entered the White Mansion for the first time, my heart was broken. It was like entering a hell on earth. Who would have guessed that at this moment, it would blurt out and call it home? In this way, there is a kind of treachery like sadness and shame welling up in my heart. Seeing that he was smiling at first, Bai Xuelan suddenly showed a sullen look on his face. Knowing that when he brought up the past and touched an old injury, he felt very regretful. Although he was willful and unruly and resolute, he was actually very guilty of forcibly infringing Xuan Huaifeng under house arrest in the mansion in the past, and he didn't dare to mention it. Even if I'm suffocating, I'll tell you later, and I'll be discharged in the afternoon. But ask a doctor and nurse to stay with me for a while, to prevent the injury from recurring." Xuan Huaifeng is kind-hearted. Seeing that he was embarrassed and astringent, he silently nodded without saying a word. Bai Xuelan went out to explain the matter. Song Ren, who had been on duty at the hospital for a while, was bored early. Knowing that he was going back to the mansion, everyone couldn't help but be overjoyed. Moreover, Bai Xuelan had already said something before, waiting for the adjutant Xuan to recover. When they go back, everyone has a reward. Song Ren didn't care much, but the other guards were already thinking about how to spend the money. By the afternoon, everything was settled. Adjutant's son settled the medical expenses early, and added a thank you to the hospital director and the attending German doctor. In addition, he hired a Western doctor and a senior nurse to temporarily take care of the patients at the White Mansion. Bai Xuelan and Xuan Huaifeng sat in the Lincoln car they used to ride in, and the others crowded into 5 or 6 cars, back and forth, and back to the White Mansion. Outside the mansion, the housekeeper received a phone call and led a group of maids waiting in line outside the gate. Seeing Bai Xuelan helping Xuan Huaifeng get out of the car, the housekeeper called out in a high voice, "Congratulations to Adjutant Xuan. It's healed." According to the etiquette of the old dynasty, he led the crowd to beat 1,000 children. This made Bai Xuelan laugh out loud, pointed at the butler and said, "The older you are, the more refined you are. Knowing that Adjutant Xuan is in your favor, you can change your way to please him. Right? We've always been fine, and everyone is really happy that he's back." It was early July, and the sun was shining brightly. Xuan Huaifeng came out of the bore and dull hospital ward and stepped into the White Mansion, which was the mansion of the prince. Arriving at the Crescent Moon Gate, I couldn't help walking towards the small courtyard where I lived. The housekeeper followed with a smile and asked, "Where is Adjutant Xuan going?" Xuan Huaifeng said, "Go and see my room." The housekeeper asked, "Didn't the chief tell Adjutant Xuan?" Xuan Huaifeng stopped. He come and ask, "What did you say to me?" The housekeeper said, The chief called back and ordered us to clean up the small yard where Adjutant Xuan lived and move everything to the chief's yard. The place where you lived is now completely empty. There's nothing to see. Xuan Huaifeng was startled. Bai Xuelan didn't say anything about this matter, which shows that his bad habit of making his own decisions has not changed. But the housekeeper just listened to his instructions, so it was boring to complain to him. Xuan Huaifeng was stunned for a while, and then he stopped going forward. Bai Xuelan also hadn't set foot in the house for a long time. When he got home, he had many things to ask him for instructions. He dealt with it like a quick knife. Just as he was about to sneak out to find Xuan Huaifeng, Song Ren came in again with a small box and asked him, "Chief, Adjutant's son said that this is the most important military drug. And there is no chance to use it in the hospital. There are 10 intact sticks left. I want to bring it in person and put it in the study first, so as not to be used by people. I don't know. It was broken. He also asked me to ask you if this should be returned to the headquarters for write-off." Bai Xuelan sneered, "The headquarters is also a mess, what's the bill? It's so easy to get it. Don't give it up for nothing, return it to his grandmother." Xuan Huaifeng was not in front of him, and his bandit words were not to be feared to speak out. Song Ren was also a rough soldier in the army. Seeing him speak and act like this, he was very in line with his spleen and stomach, and handed him the small box with a smile. Bai Xuelan opened the safe, put the small box in the corner, and was about to close the door of the safe when he suddenly thought of something and took a jewelry box out of it. He locked the safe, stood up straight, and asked Song Ren, "I heard that you are in your hometown in Shandong, and you already have a wife?" Song Ren said, "That's right." Bai Xuelan smiled and said, "The capital is prosperous here, your wife also. Water from far away can't save those near the fire, so why haven't I seen you strolling around in the kiln?" Song Ren shook his head and said, "Chief, I don't go to that kind of place." Bai Xuelan said, "Oh? You are a master. Are you very clean?" Song Ren said sternly, "That kind of place is very dirty. Besides, although my wife is not beautiful, she is a good woman. When I came out to serve as a soldier, she was the only one who farmed at home, served my parents-in-law and raised children. Worry about it, Chief, you say, such a good woman, how can those girls in the kiln compare? In their eyes, they only love money." Bai Xuelan laughed, "Very good, you are loyal to your wife. Look, it's not too bad to come to my boss. Let me ask you, do you have any daughters?" Song Ren mentioned his sons and daughters and was very proud, and replied, "I already have 3 sons. The commander approved me the year before last. Visiting relatives. Going home was lively for 3 or 5 days, and last year I added a little girl." Bai Xuelan happily said, "Having sons and daughters together is a good word, you are a good fellow. Come on. This is for you. In the future, your daughter will leave the court and give her a dowry, and let others see that her father is capable." He shoved the jewelry box into Song Ren's hand. Song Ren was taken aback when he saw it. Although there is often a reward for following Commander Pai, this kind of jewelry box in the shape of a foreign chicken heart can be seen as the most noble thing. His calloused hand suddenly touched the mysterious velvet shell, and he suddenly felt ashamed. The person with the gun can't hold a foreign jewelry box? Open it and take a look. Song Ren opened the box, and there was a white metal chain lying in it. Under the chain was a black pearl the size of a finger, and another pair of black pearls embedded in it. The earrings are matched in the box, which is extraordinarily rare and extravagant. Bai Xuelan said, "This is not silver, but platinum. In terms of price, it is more expensive than gold. Needless to say, those pearls are not easy to find with such size and color. Such a dowry is not disgraceful, is your daughter?" Song Ren fought in the army for many years, often attacking some county towns in Shandong, robbing some big households. But the gold chain is already very rich, not to mention these platinum and black pearls that are very mysterious. He glanced at Bai Xuelan half-believingly. Chief, did you really give it to me? Bai Xuelan said, don't be too wordy, put it away. Song Ren was moved and delighted, and he really put it away in his jacket. He bowed to Bai Xuelan in a proper manner. Then, I'll take care of my wife, my daughter, thank you, Chief. Bai Xuelan nodded, looked at him, and suddenly asked, Song Ren, do you know who this thing originally belonged to? Song Ren was stunned and shook his head. Bai Xuelan said, this was originally intended for Adjutant Xuan's sister, Mrs. Nian. Xuan Dian. Song Ren was stunned again. Bai Xuelan asked, you've probably heard some rumors. The father of the adjutant Xuan was also a commander-in-chief with more than 100,000 horses. Right? Song Ren said honestly, yes. Bai Xuelan smiled indifferently. Don't be nervous, we're just chatting, why are you standing up straight? Sit down. Song Ren was bored for a while. Then took the jewelry box out of his arms and murmured, Chief, since this is something for Mrs. Nian, I still don't want it. What did you say? I don't want it. With sharp eyes, Song Ren, a big man who was used to seeing blood, didn't dare to move at all. Bai Xuelan gave him a drink but did not continue to reprimand him, but softened her tone and asked him, do you know why I gave you the things I gave to Mrs. Nian? Song Ren said, I don't know. Bai Xuelan said, then I'll tell you, prick up your ears and listen. Bai Xuelan said, I did a lot of things for the adjutant Xuan, and I got this set of things for him. No matter what you think, what Premier Pai thinks, what the commanders in your hometown in Shandong think. Anyway, I only have one piece that goes straight to my intestines. I only think about him. It doesn't matter if he is a man or a woman, whether he can help me to have a son. Can I pass on the family to me, no matter what you do you understand? Song Ren nodded. Understood. In the future, if those irrelevant people ask me about the matter here, even if Commander Pai asks him personally, you will give him 3 words, no, Dao. Yes. Also, Xuan Dian is the daughter of the commander, but today I clearly tell you that in my eyes. She is the daughter of the commander, not as good as your daughter. Why? Because Xuan Dian is useless, just a noble empty shell. I can't keep my own brother. And what about your daughter? Your daughter's father is a bloody man. With your gun, I can let Huaifeng go out and breathe a sigh of relief. Just for this, I want to send this something put for your daughter and tell her that your father is a good person. Chief. Don't say it, can't I see it? Since you came, every time you go out with Adjutant Xuan, he returns safely. On the day of Jinghua building, if I hadn't transferred you away from him, he wouldn't. I really regret it. Bai Xuelan sighed. If you followed him from beginning to end that day, you would never allow him to be hurt like this. This is my fault. I'm sorry, Huaifeng. And I'm sorry for you. Song Ren was exposed by him for secretly reporting to the Pai family. Although this was his duty, it was disgraceful after all. Unexpectedly, when the conversation changed, it turned out to be a confession that moved helplessly. A rough soldier who is a soldier is nothing but a platinum pearl. The most unattainable thing is such respect and trust. Song Ren only felt that the blood all over his body was boiling. His eyes were wet, and he gritted his teeth and said, Chief, don't say anything. Anyway, my life, Song Ren, will be sold to you in the future, to Adjutant Xuan. Bai Xuelan looked at his face that had turned purple with excitement, and nodded silently.